You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
Christmas movie aside, she should have, like, if you're going to have a character who is like a punk because she wears Converse, which is so overdone, don't give them she was wearing like low top gray Converse or like, no, low top blue Converse with blue jeans.
Oh my God. I know. And like the jeans weren't like skinny jeans or like fashionable jeans. They were just like your typical like boot cut from Old Navy, like whatever. You're fine to wear them.
That character is supposed to be like edgy, you know, she's not like the other reporters. She wears Converse to her wedding. Remember she
lifts her dress up and she's like, and everyone's like, oh
my God, she's wearing Converse.
I can't.
I do like Converse a lot and I still wear them, but it's like, put her in some pink high tops if you really want her to be spunky.
Yeah, well,
and cool.
And yeah, no, she just was not edgy or as edgy as they thought that they were making her. She was just, you know, your average American.
Maybe that's what they're going for. I mean, that's what their audience is.
It's true. If you have no idea what we're talking about, then you obviously don't watch crappy Christmas movies, and that's your loss. So
we were just discussing The Christmas Prince.
Right, and how we think there's a third coming out this holiday season. Where she gets pregnant.
I say that The Christmas Prince isn't even that good. Of all Netflix's Christmas movies.
She spit in fire today, folks. She's about to upset
They have
some
better
listeners.
ones. They have better ones. So if you guys didn't know, I actually have a podcast from I didn't do it last year, but a made-for-TV Christmas movie podcast where I recap made-for-TV Christmas movies. Chelsea joined me on one or two.
Right. Definitely.
But yeah, I have an episode where I compare like two fake Christmas boyfriends. Anyways, maybe we'll do it this year if we get enough interest.
And we'll have better audio this time.
Yeah, there are also like a couple of movies that I'm waiting to drop. But before we get to that, it's still Halloween, and so I don't want to talk about Christmas yet. It's All Hallows Eve.
Let's move on.
It's already dark outside, and it's going to be daylight savings time. Tomorrow. Crazy. So it's going to get even darker from here on out. So it's going to be like pitch black next time we record.
I know. By the time this releases, we'll be recording in pitch black for the next 12, it'll be like pitch black for like 12 hours straight
12
every day.
Months. Yeah. I mean, I guess we could wake up earlier, but no. I'm not doing that.
Who do you think I am? I barely wake up on time as it is, so.
Yeah. Especially with the long commute these days.
I know. My God, the fact that I have to walk from my bed to my desk, no.
My commute is about 2 feet from my bed. My desk is right next to my bed. Thank God I do not have any video morning conferences. But wait, did we introduce ourselves?
We did not. Should we?
I'll introduce you.
Okay.
Everyone, this is Chelsea Rowan. She's 5'9", size 10 shoe, and She has a buzz cut. She's currently sporting a buzz cut.
It's true. And I only wear gloves that go past my elbows. So you'll never actually see my real hands. I have a fear of showing my hands. Hey, that's me. And let me introduce you to Grace Topinka. She is from Montana originally, but then she moved to the UK and she studied there, for maybe 2 or 3 years. Was it 3 years or 4 years?
3.5, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But then she came back here, got a job in, marketing, as she says. It's actually an MLM, cheeky, but everything's great.
I sell essential oils, so hit me up if you want to be in my downline. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I don't want to alienate any people who sell essential oils, but man, I'm on the anti-MLM rabbit hole on the internet. But we are the Good Evening Girls, and this podcast is not about Christmas movies or MLMs, though it could be if it potentially came up. It's a trivia podcast.
It is. And it's actually your favorite weekly Podword Crosscast. Some people call us the Good Evening Girls. If that's your thing, feel free.
I said that already.
Fucked up our nearly perfect intro. Please stay with us.
That was so smooth. We went right into it. Should we just carry on over into our hits and shits of the week?
Let's carry on to the hits and shit. I actually have a shit.
You do? Good. We don't have shits that much anymore.
Not anymore. I haven't shit in 10 days. No. So yeah, we don't have shits. I think mainly because everything else is just so freaking crazy that a crossword for me is just relaxing. I try to relax when I do a crossword. But this is a shit. Maybe I'm being too aggressive, but this was actually brought to my attention by my boyfriend, who sometimes occasionally edits our podcast. This is from the Saturday, October 24th New York Times, by Byron Walden. 18 across. Function with no limits, question mark. 4 letters. NSFW. The answer is orgy. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, fine. I understand, like, the cutesy little, wordplay that we're going with here. But isn't orgy really a function with no limits? Or does that sound a little rapey to you? Because it sounds a little rapey to me.
No, you guys, if you want to experiment into, outside of traditional sex relationships, boundaries are like one of the most important things. So I've never been to an orgy myself, but I'm sure there are a lot of ground rules. There have to be to make it work.
A lot of rules. And just because you're having sex with multiple people, and like, I feel like the idea that like an orgy is like
you're
kinky or something,
no
there's no limits. And it's like, actually, if you're getting into like the kink world, that's like the whole point, is to like set boundaries and limits for yourself. So, I mean, I don't know if Byron wrote that clue or not, obviously. And it's not
good
a
job,
legitimate
Byron. You've
shit,
obviously never been to an orgy.
Yeah, so when you get to your first orgy, let me know. So
I usually like all the clues they do for orgy, because usually they're a fun play on words.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one, we'll talk about it.
It's just a little
message him.
A little, but the rest of his puzzle was fun if you like to be in physical pain when solving a puzzle. All of the clues are so difficult and so tricky. I'm going to read you a couple. 6 across, jacket material. The answer was cover art.
Oh, come on. I never
know.
would have gotten that. I would have if I had like
ages.
a million other letters filled in.
Or 31 across, drag enthusiast. The answer is hot rodder.
I see what they did there.
23 down, arrangements of locks. Hairdos, or 43 down, charging implement. And the answer was lance, as if you were like charging with a lance on a horse. Yeah. Anyway, it was a good puzzle, but really tricky.
That's how they get you. Well, I really liked the Washington Post Sunday, October 25th puzzle by Evan Bernholz called Metamorphosis. Or sorry.
Ooh.
Yeah, Metamorphosis.
Who has the album Metamorphosis?
Isn't it Hillary Duff?
It's Hillary Duff, right?
Yeah. It's actually
going
Hillary Duff
out
themed
on
puzzle.
a Friday night, feeling crazy, gotta make it all right. I love Hillary Duff.
We're gonna get copyrighted. I liked this puzzle because it was, well, first of all, it was a rebus, and I'm not even gonna try to explain it because it's too complicated without looking at it, but it was really well done, and there were so many horror clues in there and like horror movie references.
Oh,
and
I should do it. I should do it.
Yeah. So maybe I won't like go into it too much, but I will do a couple that I liked. 7, well, of course these aren't even horror related, but they made me laugh. 73 across, those with high spirits, question mark. Stoners.
Yes.
And then this one was like part of the rebus, so it's a little convoluted, but essentially it was 68 down, comedian who hosts his own show on Adult Swim.
Eric Andre?
Yes.
Oh my God, guys, you don't get it. This is so great to see Eric represented in the Washington Post Sunday
We
puzzle.
love Eric Andre, but I feel like he's more and more popular now.
He is.
He's kind of like, he's very weird and chaotic, and some people, he's not to a lot of people's taste. So to see him come up in the crossword made me so happy. I was like, he made it.
Right.
If you want another
his
good
new
clue
show
for
is
him,
coming out.
Yes. It came out already, actually.
Is it out?
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the new clue?
Well, you could do a clue. You can't spell American Dream without Eric Andre. You know how they like to do like this name hidden in this phrase. So American Dream has Eric Andre in it.
There you go.
Just,
he really
I'm
is
giving
the
out
American dream.
Yeah. Truly.
One of the best things we did last year was we saw Eric Andre live at the Chicago Theater, and that was so fun.
It was really fun. And they actually have the live show on Netflix now, although it doesn't compare to seeing it in person.
It doesn't, but you will get if you've never seen Eric Andre, I think his live performance is probably a good place for you to start, because the comedy is really good, and you do get some of his chaotic energy, but it's not as crazy as his TV show. I think you kind of have to ease into the TV show a little bit.
You have to start with the show, but you have to like push yourself through. Just search on YouTube. They have all the clips on there.
It's great.
Or you can buy the season. That's probably what people should do.
If you're curious
legally.
what our humor is, just watch all of
It's
Eric Andre's.
Andre, yeah. And then please don't stop listening to us if you absolutely hate him. I mean, sometimes he can be a little immature, but so can
One
we.
way to put it. Yeah.
Another puzzle I liked was the New Yorker, Monday, October 26th by Patrick Barry. 54 across, court without a goal, question mark.
Oh, what was this? I can't remember.
Flirt.
Oh, right. It was Flirt. That was good.
Yeah.
I liked 47 across from that. Stories that unfold dramatically, question mark. And it was pop-up books. Just cute. Very cute.
I had that. What if someone made like an adult pop-up book that was gigantic and you had to just like read
an adult like XXX pop-up book or like an adult
like a
sized?
pop-up book that's like an adult story. You know, it's not like a children's story. And then you're just like reading it on the train and people are like, dude, can you put your book away? This is one of the most rambly intros I think we have ever done.
Please bear with us. It's a weird time.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's like the impending election that's making us both like
a little bit
a
looser.
little loopy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Well, speaking of the impending election, Incubator did a crossword puzzle this week that I should forward to you.
Please do.
For some reason I'm the only one that gets them now. Okay. So it was October 29th by Shandy Deitmer, and 2 down, typical presidential tweet these days.
Lie.
Claptrap. Which I had to look up. So claptrap is like, you know, something that is just BS that you want praise for.
Right, exactly.
But anyways, hopefully
also known as a lie most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, send me that puzzle. I would like to do it. Did you do the Wednesday New Yorker puzzle, Amy Lucido?
I don't think so.
I like this puzzle for a couple reasons. The first reason was 1 across. Mozzarella filled with stracciatella and cream. The answer is burrata, which is like the food of my soul, which I know is like the most millennial thing that I could possibly say is that like I live off burrata, but it's true.
No, it'd be like avocado toast would be the most millennial thing. And you don't even like avocado. So.
I don't actually like avocado. But I will hop on the burrata train. It changed my life. And also I learned what burrata was from this puzzle. So thank you, Amy. Another good clue, 44 across is like super meta and like self-aware. Like a student solving a crossword puzzle in class, maybe. Bored.
Nice.
It's more like a, I don't know, worker solving a crossword on her lunch hour, maybe. And it's like, me, bored.
I don't know if we're bored. We're like...
It's definitely not boredom. It's
struggling,
more like...
Yeah.
But here's a good one. Here's a good one. 53 across. Remy, a chef in a 2007 Pixar film for 1. And the answer is rat, which everyone should know.
Okay.
Remy is the rat. Ratatouille is not the rat's name. Okay, so wake up, first of all, people. Second of all, if you're not on TikTok, then you don't know that there are a ton of TikTok accounts currently collaborating on a like Ratatouille TikTok musical right now.
Oh, God.
And
I thought
the songs are really cool.
I thought it was going to be like Remy's last name. I was like, does he have a last name?
Mm.
But yeah, he has the same fate as Frankenstein. Basically, everyone thinks his name is Ratatouille.
There you go.
Sometimes it happens like that when you make it, when the title is an interesting name. That's why people think Coco's name is Coco. His name's Miguel, the guy from Coco.
Wake up. Okay, the last clue from Amy's puzzle. This is for you, Grace. 12 down. Feature on the underside of a cat's paw. Cutely.
Toe bean?
Yeah.
Is it really that?
Yeah.
Or just bean? Oh,
No,
cute.
toe bean. Isn't that cute?
They do have toe beans.
They do.
I can hear my cat rustling under my bed right now, hearing me talk about him.
He's ready for Christmas, folks.
He is ready. I want to give a quick shout out to the Tuesday New York Times puzzle by Lucy Bressett and David Steinberg, because they did 30 down 2020 Chinese zodiac animal, and it was the rat. Oh, sorry, that was 30 down. And then 34 down 2019 Chinese zodiac animal, which was the pig. If you listened to our episode on Chinese zodiac, you would have known that.
You would have known.
You would have known. And then they also did 32 Across, Blank and Roy children's TV series. And the answer was Esme, which I have never heard of that series before. But it's like, if you're going to clue Esme, just clue her as Edward Cullen's foster mom and call it a day. Or Carlisle's wife.
Exactly. And if you're interested in who these people are, listen to our other podcast, which is not doing as nearly as well as this one. But it's a lot of fun.
For some reason.
Are you telling me people don't want to just listen to us talk about and like scream about Twilight being crappy all day? They're missing out.
No. If you want like this type of no, we're more focused over there. You should come check us out over there.
It's called Meet Me in Forks. We'll see you there, folks.
There's links in the description of this episode.
Do it. Do it. I dare you. Does that mean?
Should we just get into the meat and potatoes? Because we're like dragging our feet here, and I'm actually excited about, well, not actually, I usually am, but I'm excited about my topic.
I'm excited about my topic too.
I'm kind of worried we have the same one.
I was thinking about it the whole time I did my research.
Actually, no, we don't, because you didn't do the puzzle that I did mine on.
Who knows? So mine showed up in multiple puzzles this week, so we'll see. And this comes up in some anyway, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Okay,
just we're gonna flip the coin.
I'm flipping the coin now. Tails!
It's me.
It's great.
So if we did pick the same one, I get to go first.
Ha ha ha.
For far too long, werewolves have played second fiddle to vampires and zombies in modern pop culture, but not in this episode. Is that you? Did you choose werewolf too?
But I'm still shocked that you're doing werewolves. That's exactly something I would do. You're so lucky I didn't do the incubator because I would have 100% picked werewolves.
No, this is from Washington Post. All right, so I'm going to talk about werewolves. It comes from the Washington Post Sunday, October 25th puzzle, Metamorphosis by Evan Bernholz. The way it was clued was weird because it was part of the theme and there was a rebus, and so it doesn't have like a specific clue for it, but it was supposed to be a word that went along with the word full moon, and it was werewolf, and it's like hidden in the puzzle. That's kind of how, spoiler alert for how the theme is. There's a bunch of different stuff like that.
I can't wait to do this puzzle.
Yes, with different monsters. It's very fun, so you should do it. Okay, so let's talk about werewolves, shall we? They are people who have morphed into vicious, powerful wolves, and in some cases, they are an unholy hybrid of wolf and human. So sometimes it's not like a full transformation. And lately,
it's kind of like that, like the centaur that I talked about. You know, like you got half man,
which is even
half
more terrifying to me for some reason. Yeah, and just be a full-on wolf if you're gonna do it. Don't have like biceps, human biceps.
Oh no.
But lately, werewolves have been given a like protector story arc. I'm looking at you, Jacob from Twilight, and in other modern TV shows and stuff. But where did they start? So most of my information is from history.com, article called Werewolf Legends. The earliest surviving example of a man-to-wolf transformation is found in the Epic of Gilgamesh from around 2100 BC. In this story, Gilgamesh rejects a potential lover because he found out that she turned her ex-boyfriend into a wolf. And he also did not want to be turned into a wolf. I get that.
I can understand
the kind of shit
that.
People were writing about in 2100 BC. Have we evolved at all? I don't know.
Okay, I just started a K-drama where they like turn from like human to like foxes. So like this legend has persisted, folks. Okay,
it has. It really has.
Humans are all the same.
But that was just like a quick little reference to turning a human into a wolf. The real werewolf, like as we know it today, first appeared in ancient Greek and Roman texts, as these things often do, one of which being the legend of Lycaon. Sorry, it's a weird name to pronounce. As told in Ovid's Metamorphosis. I didn't even put that together. I wonder if that's where Evan got it from.
Oh my god, mind is blown.
Could be. Okay. So, Lycaon is the king of Arcadia, which is a city that was once full of beauty and riches. And King Lycaon was seen as a very tough and angry man, but he promised to bring the city of Arcadia back to its former glory. So people like really loved him. And he, in order to do this, he knew that he would need the help of the gods. So he erected a temple for Zeus, hoping that the gods would, come in and help them.
As you do.
Yes. But he kind of became obsessed with, worshiping these gods, and he became more and more devoted. He started conducting human sacrifices for them, which the gods did not approve of. They already said that they weren't into that, but he kept doing it for some reason. He just
if you're going to be obsessed with gods, like you should probably listen to them.
Well, you'll see why he should have. But basically what they would do is they would take any visitors to the kingdom and they would kill them and sacrifice them.
Oh,
So
no, that's not good. That's
No.
not good.
Well, Zeus found out about this and he was not happy. So he decided that he was going to go down there and see what was going on for himself. So he disguised himself as some random human and he pretended to be a visitor into the town. So they took him in to be sacrificed and the guards noticed that he was like way too calm. So they kind of thought something was up. So Lycaon is suspicious. And instead of sacrificing him, they hold a huge dinner to welcome this newcomer. Because it's like, well, if it's Zeus, let's make him think that we're like, holding that we're welcoming people. Except there's one catch. He serves human flesh. He wants to see if Zeus will eat it. Well, Zeus did not fall for this trick. And he got pissed off.
I mean,
So, yeah. Understandable.
hello. It's Zeus, first of all. Second of all, hello.
So he turned Lycaon into a half-wolf, half-man creature. King Lycaon would wander the fields, eating livestock and terrorizing people. Legend has it that on full moon nights, you could hear the king howling.
Damn, I would howl, too.
Yeah.
Not just
you're
on
a
full
wolf. It's
moon.
part of your... Well, we're going to talk about the whole full moon thing.
I'm
So the
excited.
story of Lycaon was apparently told in order to explain a ceremony called the Lycae that was held in honor of Zeus Lycaeus at Mount Lycaeus. So Lycaeus means like wolf, and there's like a wolf version of Zeus.
Okay.
And so there was like a big statue. So according to Plato, this ceremony was believed to involve human sacrifice and lycanthropy, which is assuming the form of an animal, usually a wolf, a human assuming the form of an animal. And there was evidence that human sacrifice was still practiced at this location in 2nd century AD. So that's kind of, where that story comes from.
Okay.
So it started with human sacrifice, which is a theme in werewolves. A lot of times if you eat, that's one way to get turned into a werewolf, by eating humans.
Right.
So werewolves emerged in other folklore too. In the Nordic saga of Volsungs, a father and son discover wolf pelts that had the power to turn people into wolves for 10 days. The father-son duo donned the pelts, transformed into wolves, and went on a killing rampage in the forest. And
I've
it
heard
ended
this.
when they turned on each other.
Heard
Yeah.
this story.
According to the Romans, anyone who had turned into a wolf by means of magic spells or herbs was called versipellis, aka turn skin.
I like that.
Yes. So basically any cultures like folklore has some version of a werewolf or a human turning into a vicious animal, at least. Stories of werewolves continued to plague society and were widely believed in Europe in the Middle Ages. Like, people actually believed that werewolves exist and were terrorizing the town. So outlaws and bandits, they would kind of take advantage of this and they would wear wolf skins to, scare people essentially and get away with these crimes.
Oh my God, these people, I swear to God. If someone came into my house to like burglarize me wearing a wolfskin, I'd be like, please, literally take anything you want. Have you seen that Schitt's Creek episode yet where someone tries to rob them? And it's like, of course, this is how a gay man would respond to someone trying to rob his shop. And he's like, do you want cheese? You want wine? Please. Like, what do you want? Anything. And he's like, well, this goes with this. So anyway, that would be me.
I would be like, I can tell it's just a person under wolf skin. Also, I apologize for the way I say wolf. I feel like I'm saying it weird. It's hard for me to get that LF. I feel like I'm saying woof. Anyways.
You sound great to me.
Okay, thank you. But the true instances of werewolves killing people, which is what they thought was happening, those were really serial killers. This happened in multiple places at this time. So France had like a major problem with this. In 1521, Frenchmen Pierre Bourgault and Michel Verdun allegedly swore allegiance to the devil, and claimed to have an ointment that turned them into wolves. After confessing to brutally murdering several children, they were both burned to the death at the stake. Ugh. One of the only ways you can kill a werewolf, by the way. We'll talk more about that later. But Gilles Garnier, known as the Werewolf of Dole, was another 16th century Frenchman whose claim to fame was also an ointment that could turn him into a wolf.
Convenient.
And according to legend, as a wolf, he viciously killed children and ate them. He too was burned to death at the stake for his monstrous crimes. But possibly the most well-known werewolf murderer was Peter Stube, a wealthy 15th century farmer in Bedburg, Germany. According to folklore, he turned into a wolf-like creature at night and devoured the citizens of Bedburg. Hunters claimed they even saw him shapeshift from a wolf into a human. Stube himself said that he had an enchanted belt that gave him werewolf powers, a belt that has never been found.
Of course.
Obviously. He was publicly executed after admitting to torturing and sometimes eating men, women, and children, but not without controversy. Some people believe that this was a witch hunt, or rather a were hunt, where overzealous police departments spread werewolf rumors to incite fear and violence.
Sure.
As for the other people, were they all sociopaths? Were they psychologically disturbed? Maybe they had real lycanthropy, which is a real psychiatric condition in which a person believes that they are a wolf or some other non-human animal. Who knows? Were they just taking advantage of the werewolf thing to scare people and become serial killers? But,
I mean, serial killers existed literally in every time period, so.
Yeah. So I guess back then they were like, well, werewolves are big right now, so I guess maybe these serial killers are really just werewolves.
Yeah, I'll get down with that.
Yeah. Oh, and I meant to say this before. In countries where wolves aren't common, there are other types of werewolves. So they have, like in Asia and Africa, there's were-cats, which is like half human, half tiger or leopard.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. So
tigers are massive, by the way.
Yeah, that would scare me more than, I don't know. They all scare me.
Oh, no. Wolves are so big too. I don't know. Have you seen the Liam Neeson movie with the wolves? Mm-mm.
No, I've only seen Twilight, and those wolves are big.
They're very big. She's only ever seen one movie, and it was Twilight.
That's true. But yeah, so people basically were always looking for examples that werewolves were real. And in 1975, a young boy was found naked and walking on all fours somewhere in Germany. He was called a wild boy, and people believed he was raised by wolves because he could not walk upright and he ate with his hands. He was sent to be a novelty attraction in the courts of King George I and King George II. Of course, today most experts believed he had some type of medical condition. But this was 1975, okay? That's not that long ago.
No.
But there is actually something called werewolf syndrome. There is a medical condition that gives the appearance of being a werewolf. It's called trichosis, and it causes thick hair growth all over the body except for palms and soles of the feet. Extreme cases are rare. There have only been about 50 reported since medieval times, but it's possible that the myths began back in the day when no one knew anything was. They were like, whoa, that person looks like they're, could be a wolf.
Right, and if you've got that disease, I mean, you might as well commit to it.
Oh, I would. I mean, you don't have other choice. I guess you could get a wax. I don't know. Anyways, someone could have seen that like in ancient Greece, and then been like, well, I'm going to make up a whole story about this. Okay, so how do werewolves work? According to multiple legends, there's like a bunch of different ways on how you can become a werewolf. Okay, I'm going to read a couple. You can be born as the seventh son of a seventh son.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's kind of rare to hit that lottery, but if your dad's the seventh son and you are too, you better watch out.
Watch out, buddy.
You could eat wolf meat. You could enter into a pact with the devil. Do not recommend doing that.
Unless you're bored.
Yeah. You could be murdered under a full moon. You could also be born under a full moon. Or like consummated, created, wink, wink, under a full moon. You could avoid practicing Catholic sacraments for 10 years. All right. So how many of you out there have not done a Catholic sacrament in 10 years? You're at risk. You could be cursed to become a werewolf.
There's a lot of ways.
You could have sex with a werewolf when they're a human, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Or, of course, you can get bitten by a werewolf. If they don't kill you, then you can turn to a wolf.
Sure. That's the one I knew about. And the seventh son thing.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So just other facts about werewolves. They are not immortal, but they do age more slowly than humans, and they have the power of self-healing. So they're basically like superhuman.
Yeah, superpower.
But how do you kill a werewolf? You do not exorcise them. Okay, as an exorcise. Holy water does not work. They are not vampires. They're not really meant to be demonic. In a lot of stories, actually, werewolves are almost seen as victims because they've, lived this tortured life.
Right.
But if you do want to learn more about vampires, check out episode 24, Unidentified Fanged Objects, because Chelsea did a very good episode on them.
There we go.
But yeah, they're not werewolves, so do not keep your holy water for something else.
Keep it to yourself.
All right, what about silver bullets?
I've heard about this one.
Yes, this is something that came up in a trivia game that we played with Katrina, but we were wrong. So modern folklore says that silver bullets are strong enough to kill werewolves. However, the true element used to kill werewolves throughout history is quicksilver, which is the liquid form of mercury.
There it is.
People?
There it
so
is.
if you're spending your money on silver bullets, they're worthless.
Mm-hmm.
You need that quicksilver. You need those mercury bullets.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
A ring of salt around your home can ward them off.
Well, a ring of salt in general in like witchcraft and, whatever.
Slugs.
Yes. All of these things. No. So if you put like a ring of salt, it's supposed to be like a protection ring. And you do that to protect yourself.
We've all watched Hocus Pocus, Chelsea.
Okay. Oh my God. Some
I
people
love that
here...
part in Hocus Pocus. And she's like, wait, am I your girlfriend? Do you remember that? That was like the big love scene. Okay. Anyways, they also don't like the smell of wolfsbane, which is a plant.
Right.
Hence the name wolfsbane. I don't know. Maybe that works against just traditional wolves as well. Another way to kill them is you can cut their heads off. That is similar to vampires.
Yes.
At least in Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
And another shout out to Twilight because werewolves are known to be telepathic with each other. Okay.
They are.
So Stephanie Meyer did get that right. They have like that wolf pact mentality. So one of them hurts. But it's like, I don't know. I mean,
I've read so many books with werewolves in them and they all can talk to each other. It's like a thing.
But if you get turned into a werewolf, like you're just some random person who gets attacked under a full moon, it's not like all your friends are werewolves, so you'd have to go out and find others.
Yep, or you'd be a lone wolf. But sometimes werewolves will turn you with the intention of you joining their pack. Like they intentionally turn you.
I wouldn't mind that. Well, I wouldn't want to kill people. But it'd
that's
be fun. It'd just be fun to be part of something, like a...
It'd be fun to have a family.
Yeah. No offense to my family, but they live kind of far. Okay. So here are some signs that someone is a werewolf, according to cbc.ca, which I believe the site was for children, but it still made me laugh. So they pace around the room as the sun goes down.
Oh, okay.
They have reddish, sharp nails.
Ew.
They have animal-like strength. They have a single long eyebrow instead of two. Just say unibrow. They are pale and very tired the day after full moon. That is me, but I'm not a werewolf. I just am pale and don't get good sleep. They have eyes the color of the sun, and they tend to fly into a rage before a full moon.
Okay.
All right, so what's the deal with this full moon thing? Okay.
Tell me.
Fun fact, actually, really sad fact, violence in... Sorry. I can't say that out loud. Violence increases during full moon nights.
This
it's
is
like
true.
a known statistic. According to a study conducted at Australia's Calvary Mater Newcastle Hospital, out of the 91 violent incidents at the hospital within a year period, 23% of them happened during a full moon. That's almost a quarter of them happened during full moon, and full moon only happens like once a month. So, explain that.
Yeah. Okay. Mrs. Scientists out there.
Okay. So, to kind of sum it up here, I want to focus on this idea of like a werewolf being used to explain how a man could do something so horrendous. For example, like these serial killers, everyone's like, well, they have to be werewolves, right? I mean, they've murdered all these people.
Right.
Whatever. But there's this idea that, people are biologically subhuman or immoral. And I'm going to end with a quote from theconversation.com, an article called The Ancient Origins of Werewolves by Tanika Kuzman. And this is her quote. The idea that there was a link between biology, i.e. appearance, and so-called immoral behavior developed fully in the late 20th century. However, minority groups were more often the target than mythical kings. Law enforcement, scientists, and the medical community joined forces to find cures for socially deviant behavior such as criminality, violence, and even homosexuality. Science and medicine were used as a vehicle through which bigotry and fear could be maintained, as shown by the treatment of HIV-affected men throughout the 1980s. However, werewolf stories show the idea has ancient origins. For as long as authors have been changing bad men into wolves, we have been looking for the biological link between man and action.
Mm.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow, what a way to end it. Very nice. Yeah. So,
that's werewolves for you.
If you're a werewolf, I will still hang out with you.
In human form.
In human form. I mean, if you're not going to kill me in wolf form, I mean, think about like Lupin, for instance, right? The most famous werewolf of our age outside of Jacob, right?
Yeah.
He was pretty chill if he drank his medicine.
Well, in a lot of stories, werewolves only turn into werewolves if they get mad. So it's like a Hulk type thing.
Ooh.
Is the
okay.
Hulk a werewolf? Marvel's
Find
version of
out
werewolf.
next time.
He kind of is, actually, like the Marvel version.
Right. Especially
If
if
he
you're
gets mad, he turns into a monster.
especially because you said like lycanthropy, which in Harry Potter is strictly like turning into a wolf. But if it's like more about turning into like a beast or like a monster, Hulk is that. He's got that.
But it's not in his mind. Okay, he actually does turn into that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well,
yeah. So
that's all I got on Werewolves in the Hulk.
I loved it. Thank you. So my topic was actually in 2 different puzzles this week. Okay. And it has shown up a couple times. Well, not a couple times. I think this shows up quite frequently in puzzles. It might even be considered crosswordese. We'll see. But because it showed up twice, and I wanted to do something a little bit fun. I don't know if this is actually fun, but it was fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it is. This is from the Monday New Yorker, October 26, by Patrick Berry. 20 across. Miss being seen? Question mark. The answer is Deb. And then from Sunday New York Times, October 25th, Peter A. Collins, 43 across. Belle of a ball. And the answer is Deb, as in debutante.
Debutante. I did not realize that's what that. I filled it in. I was like, Deb. I thought it was like a movie reference or something.
No, it's short for debutante, which is a French word for female beginner. Yay. So, yeah, a debutante is like a woman who attends a debutante ball or event, right? Which is basically where these like upper class or aristocratic young women like go to come out in society or to like make their debut to society. And originally this quote unquote coming out meant that young women were old enough to marry or had reached maturity. And it was a way to put her on display to eligible bachelors and their families.
Thanks. I hate it.
It's one of those that kind of makes you like cringe a little bit.
Because aren't you like 16 when you do a debutante ball?
Grace.
I know nothing.
You know nothing. And you're about to learn. We'll talk about age. We'll get there. So before we get into the age thing, which is complicated, and by complicated, I mean problematic, let's start with the history. So events are like traditions, like Deb balls have been around like ever in every type of culture. There's some sort of event where you present the maturity of a woman for her to be married. But the early precursors of what are now known as debutante balls kind of started in the 1600s in England. Despite the French-sounding name, these are originally like Anglophone events, so American and English. Before they were called debutante balls, if a woman like in high society or nobility wanted to get married, they would have to be presented to the king or queen or sovereign of their nation. And like they would have to be presented at court. And once they're presented at court, then they could live at court, which meant that they could find a husband at court. And the courting process between man and woman could start. Then she would get married, and then she would get sent away from court to like live at the house where her husband had land. So like boom done deli, you're married. And then the tradition developed over time into what is now known as the debutante ball. And essentially each year, women from well-off or aristocratic families are presented at court where they'll mingle with high society, which then leads to suitable marriages, quote, end quote.
Okay. Oh, I mean, hey, now we have Tinder.
We do. So why
is it really that different?
Why was the debutante ball so popular? And why is it still popular? Because it is still popular. We're going to first start with why was it popular then? And by then, I mean like before the 1950s-ish, but still kind of after the 1950s. The simple answer is the patriarchy. The more complicated answer is that the only respectable career for a woman for like much of history was to be married. Like that was their career. And their only goal in life was to like get married. And it was thought that the best marriages in England and the United States were made to debutantes. So only after you came out to society. We'll talk about why. There's an article in the Time magazine called "It's Easy to Dismiss Debutante Balls, but Their History Can Help Us Understand Women's Lives" by Kristen Richardson. Kristen Richardson actually wrote a book called The Season, I believe it's called, which talks all about the history of debutante balls. And I would actually really like to read it because it sounds super interesting. And it talks a lot about the history of dating and courting, you know, from like Victorian era to now. Anyway, so this is a quote. It's kind of long, but it gives us some context as why women had to do these kind of debutante rituals. Here we go. Quote, "The Protestant Reformation in 16th century England and Northern Europe ended the extremely convenient practices of cloistering unmarriageable girls in convents. While Catholic aristocracy in Europe continued this practice, the English aristocracy now had a daughter problem. Protestants, you see, don't have convents. When an exasperated Mr. Bennet says of his 5 daughters in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, 'What's to be done with all these girls?' he was speaking to a marriage problem that had existed unresolved for several hundred years already. The Reformation left wealthy or titled Englishmen with a glut of daughters whose marriages had to be considered most delicately, since, by law, they could not inherit their father's estates. The type of marriage the debutante ritual would provide was safe. The girls were presented to vetted company and prevented a bad marriage from dragging down the status of the entire family, like Lydia's threatened to do in Austen's novel."
It makes more sense now. I didn't think about that, though. Yeah, the Catholics, they have like 1 million kids, but they just send half of them to become nuns and priests.
Right.
And call it a day.
Right. And yeah, like there were laws for a long time where, you know, women could not inherit the father's, you know, estate or money or anything, really. So if you didn't get married, you were just considered a spinster, and you would be a leech on your family for the rest of your life. And hopefully
sounds good to me.
Right. Well, here's the problem.
Rich?
The problem, though, is that like your family could turn you out at any time if they didn't want you to leech off them anymore. And if, for instance, if you were part of this Pride and Prejudice situation where it was a household of 5 women, you didn't have an older brother that could potentially finance your life. If once your father died, if you didn't have a husband or an older brother, you were fucked.
Yeah.
So not only were they like,
just become a witch or something. Did they have those at the time?
They did, but they got burned. So it's like right. Catch-22, right? Basically,
can't win.
They can't win. That's why I said the easy answer is the patriarchy. Okay, so let's talk about debutante traditions in the Regency and Victorian era England, because it's very interesting. So, London's social season for like the aristocracy and nobility happens between April to June. Okay, and that's basically the season where like people are living in London, going to all these parties, going to all these balls, and getting hitched, courting.
Girls are blossoming.
They're
spring.
blossoming.
I hate that.
I know. These nubile young women. It's disgusting.
Ew.
Yeah, I know. So debutante balls actually would kind of coincide with the start of the season. So they would kick off the whole season with a debutante ball. And that happened just after Easter. There would be 2 or 3 days set aside each year at the beginning of the season to present young women to society. And approximately 100 to 200 girls would come out each day. And these presentations were held at St. James Palace originally, and then later they were held at Buckingham Palace. So these young girls would show up to the palace, right, in their carriages, and their carriages would all line up outside the palace, and they would wait their turn to be presented to the sovereign, so the king or
that's
queen.
So much pressure, and you're competing with like 100 other girls at the same time.
Right, on one day.
How are you supposed to stand out? You have to wear low-top Converse.
You really do. Okay, so they'd all carry bouquets, and they would all dress in like a similar type dress, and their dress would be similar to how they would look on their wedding day. So that was like the whole point. And at this time, wedding dresses were not white. Wedding dresses could be anything. They were actually, it was more convenient for them to be dresses that the women could wear often, like more like over and over. So like a traveling gown or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the Amish wear blue wedding dresses and they wear them to church for the rest of their lives.
There you go. And yeah, so that's basically, they show up to be presented looking like they're going to look on their wedding, holding a bouquet in like a dress that's similar to a wedding dress. Like, we haven't talked about age yet, but some of these girls were really, really young. And so they're showing up like they're ready to get married, to be presented to all of these eligible bachelors. It's just really skeevy and like kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit. Anyway, so it actually was common for women to like their deb dresses that they would wear to be presented to the king or queen. They would then alter those dresses and use those exact dresses on their wedding day. Saves you money,
Okay.
but the men really do see what they're getting on the day you come out.
That's one day. What about the rest of your lives together?
The rest of your life doesn't matter. Okay, so in order to be presented, you would have to be sponsored by somebody, and that sponsor would submit an application for you to be presented. And your sponsor would be a lady that has already been presented to the sovereign, and they have to know you in some way or are related to you. So it could be like your mother, or grandmother, a stepmother, someone else known by the family. The higher their standing, their aristocratic standing, the better. So mostly the women presented were from the aristocracy, but you could also see people that were like clergymen, daughters of clergymen, military or naval officers, physicians, barristers. They would also all be presented in front of the queen. Other girls who did not have aristocratic connections or like rich fathers would still have coming out or debutante balls like in their local parishes, but they just wouldn't be presented to the queen. But
that's like bottom of the barrel, you know.
Right.
If
but
you're
you
desperate,
still
you
had to be presented in order to get married, like no matter what, even if you were like the farmer's daughter or whatever.
That's embarrassing.
It sucked, right? Okay, so to be a debutante, there's a couple requirements. 1, you must reach the age of maturity. And this is not based on years. This is based on whether or not your parents think you're mature enough. So basically, like, are you physically or emotionally mature to like go to court and deal with the pressures of going to all these balls and dinners and brunches and meeting the queen and dancing with all these strange men? Here's a quote. This is so crazy. A girl might be ready at 15, but her twin sister might be ready at 16, depending on when she outgrew the awkwardness of adolescence. So like, yeah. And that reminds me of Pride and Prejudice again. There's a moment when I think Judi Dench plays Lady Catherine de Bourgh, and she turns to Lizzie and she says something to the effect of, all 5 girls are out when the older sisters haven't even been married yet, because the older sisters are like in their 20s and the younger sisters are like 15, 16, and 17. And Lizzie's like, yeah, like just because we haven't gotten married doesn't mean we should stop our sisters from getting out there and having fun. And that kind of shows you like the ages of people start being presented is like around 15, 16 years old. And so if you're in your 20s and you haven't married yet, you're getting close to spinster territory.
Yeah, so what happens to our older sisters?
In Pride and Prejudice?
Yeah.
They get married.
Oh, okay.
But one of the younger girls gets married first. So she's like 15 or something. She gets married first.
Ew.
Yeah.
I like how you've grown out of awkwardness when you're 16. I definitely did not. I was like growing into my awkwardness, if anything.
Could you imagine being
like,
presented at court at 16 years old? No. The clothes that I used to wear, the makeup I used to wear. Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. I was wearing low top Converse, okay, that I wrote on with Sharpie and like gel pens. Like that's what I was doing. And these girls are like, I'm going to get married in 6 months. Whatever. Okay. So that's like number 1 requirement is reach the age of maturity. Number 2, complete an education. Nobody, and by nobody I mean like rich white men, didn't want to marry an quote unquote uneducated woman. And an educated woman in these times meant that you were accomplished, is what they called it. And accomplished meant you could speak several languages, play piano, sing, paint in watercolors and oils. You could do needlepoint. You memorized every member of the monarchy, peerage, gentry, including family backgrounds, learned classical history and geography, and you could sometimes recognize the like uniforms of the various armies around the world. Okay.
So well, I can't play piano.
No. And she also needed to be an elegant hostess, poised and beautiful. So that's all you had to do to be accomplished. And if you could do all of those, then you got checkbox number 2 on I'm almost ready to be presented to the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3 is deemed ready to be introduced to society, which basically meant that you were marriageable, as in you could bear children. So you have to like reach that physical maturity as well.
You have to have your period.
You have to have your period first.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Truly. So if you go through this whole process and you become part of society, you get presented to the queen, you were expected to be married within 2 to 3 years or else considered a failure. Yeah. And once you're out in society, you would start receiving invitations to all of the societal events, brunches, balls, galas, like golfing, hunting, whatever fucking rich white people did in England at the time, right? And then you would also start being called upon by gentlemen. Gentlemen would leave their cards at your house. They would become available to you at balls. So you would go to these balls and you could ask them to, you have like a card of like how many dances you're allowed to have each night. And you could like put certain men on your card, like, so someone could come up to you and be like, can I have the next dance? And they're like, I'm sorry, I have the next dance with the Duke of whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah.
So
God, well, it's kind of like the organization of it, but
it is actually relatively organized. Then these gentlemen would then invite like your father or your guardian to visit, hoping that they would bring you. They would go on chaperoned walks around the park with you, and then they would dine with each other's family. So that was the courting process. And the courting process could sometimes last for years and happen with multiple different men. Some girls would go into their coming out or their presentation with a fiance already lined up. And some would be presented, and then within months they would be married. So it's like crazy. The whole point was to get these women married as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of the Victorian era, though, courting was expected to last 6 months, and then the engagement was another 6 months on top of that. And like the courting process is chaperoned walks, dinners with each other's families. It's all very conservative.
That's like exactly what the Duggars do. If you know them from 19 Kids and Counting.
Yeah.
They have to be chaperoned.
Yep.
They're not allowed to be alone till they get, then I think when they're engaged, I don't even think they could be alone till they're married. But yeah, it moves quick.
Yeah, it does. And it's, how do you get to know somebody like that is like, whatever, different strokes for different folks. But, I mean, women didn't have rights at this time. And that's kind of how they forced
I
them
did not
into
trust
marriages.
my judgment on like good partner material when I was 16.
Oh my God, no. Okay, so court presentations and debutante balls were suspended during World War I and World War II for like, obvious reasons. All the men were at war. And then Queen Elizabeth actually abolished the entire practice in 1958. Although that year, 1958, they held like one last presentation.
That would be fun. I'd go to that.
Right? Okay, so
the pressure's kind of off after
1,400 girls were presented over 3 days to be like the last presentation ever. And they're considered like the lost debutantes or whatever. Who cares? I mean, whatever. I care about you as people, but like the fact that like you lost your opportunity to be debutantes. I mean, come on.
Everyone's a debutante, all right? You go out in a cute outfit and you're out to the world.
Right.
Anyone could pick you up.
Anybody. Okay, let's talk about age. Basically, like you had to complete those check boxes that I told you about. And like one of those was, you had to be marriageable, like bear children. So girls as young as 12 years old were presented at court, which meant,
oh my God.
And they were supposed to be married within 2 to 3 years. For example, Queen Victoria's oldest daughter was engaged at 14, which means her presentation either came right after that or happened right before that. And she was married by 15.
And how old was her husband? Do you know?
I do not know. I should have looked it up, but probably at least at the earliest, he was in his mid-20s.
Weird. What could they even have in common?
Nothing. It's crazy. So that's the United Kingdom. I'm going to talk a little bit about the United States. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but this is all very interesting. So debutante balls came to America in the early 1800s, and it was very similar to what was going on in England. Women weren't considered eligible to be married unless they were presented to society in some way. And like I said before, women from all walks of life would have to be presented in some way at society. So it could be at like your local country dance, or it could be at like the Waldorf Astoria in New York City at this like $25,000 a table, gala, right? Brenda Fraser is one of the most famous American debutantes in history. And I really want to talk about her for a second because it kind of sheds light on the whole debutante process and like what it does to somebody's psyche, right? So Brenda was born in 1921 to a wealthy Boston family. Her, maternal grandfather was actually knighted in 1910, so they were like super wealthy. She had a horrible home life. Both parents were alcoholics, addicted to drugs, just kind of like trying to get a divorce, pulling her from home to home. It was really traumatic for her growing up. She spent most of her childhood at a boarding school in Munich or living with her paternal grandparents. Fraser actually began appearing at cafe society functions and being regularly photographed and featured in society pages at age 12. Cafe society was just what they called like rich young people going to fancy cafes in like London, New York, and Paris. So she started doing that and like showing up in society pages when she was 12 years old. And she was with other like famous rich people like Gloria Vanderbilt, Doris Duke, Barbara Hutton. They were all being constantly written about, and they were called the glamour girls. So like they're young and
Paris
flirty.
Hilton and Lindsay Lohan.
Exactly. The woman who I read the quote from at the beginning said, "You wouldn't have had Paris Hilton, you wouldn't have Kim Kardashian without Brenda Fraser or without any of the women who went through their debutantes."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true, but I just think it's an interesting, claim. Blah, blah, blah. So in 1936, 2 years before she would debut in society, so she was 15 years old at this time, there was a society journalist. She wrote, "It may seem a bit early, but I, here and now, predict Brenda Fraser will be one of the belles, if not the belle, of her season." She debuted in 1938. That was 2 years later. She was 17 years old. She was dubbed the number one glamour girl in the country, and she was considered to be, quote, the best advertisement for just about everything. There was a comic strip character named after her. Brenda Starr was the character name. She appeared on the cover of Life magazine, which like skyrocketed her to international fame. There's a perfume named Sarong made in her honor. Department stores used her likeness for like fashion illustrations. She modeled for Woodbury Soap and Studebaker cars. Crazy. She was so popular. She was just as popular as like any movie star.
Mm-hmm.
Her debutante party was held at the Ritz in 1938, December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. Great party time. 2,000 people were in attendance. 2,000 people. Some of the richest people in the world, movie stars, Hollywood directors, everybody who was anybody was there. She had the flu and swollen feet, but she partied until 6:30 in the morning. And her party was featured in papers around the world. Her life, however, was not all glamour. She developed neck problems because she rarely moved her head for fear of messing up her hair. She suffered from anorexia and bulimia from early teenage years until her death. She once quipped that she had, quote, invented anorexia. She attempted suicide over 30 times during the span of her life.
Oh my gosh.
It's like truly so tragic. She was featured in a Life magazine article again later in life in 1963. The feature was called My Debut, a Horror. And in this article, she talked about how like her life was largely unhappy. And especially during her debutante year and the years after. She took years of therapy. She would look at old photos of herself and she would note how everything was fake and a mockery and how she hated every minute of what she was doing. And how everybody around her was doomed to this like meaningless life. The article also detailed her many nervous breakdowns that she suffered because of negative attention and like living through her horrible home life. She was called a celebutante, which she didn't like. Actually, celebutante's a great word for crosswords, and also Brenda Fraser. You could clue it as like with Brenda Fraser in some way. Anyway, in her later years, she had developed an addiction to drugs and alcohol. A friend actually stated that Fraser, quote, took pills to go to sleep, pills to wake up, pills for digestion, and pills to go to the bathroom, and pills to be happy, and pills to be sad, and pills to just be. And in 1982, she died of bone cancer. And her biographer wrote, quote, "She didn't stand a chance. There was no way she was going to be happy. Her life was basically over before it began."
Too much pressure.
She was the most famous debutante ever, y'all. Debutantes are still happening today. Like I said, presentations in England were essentially outlawed, so that doesn't happen really anymore. I mean, they have some sort of society presentation that happens in the UK still, but not really. Debutante balls are hugely popular in the United States still, especially in the South. And one of the most famous deb balls is called the International Debutante Ball, and it's held at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, and it was founded in 1954. It's invitation only, the most exclusive and most expensive ball in the world, and they have presented princesses, countesses, baronesses, other European royalties, aristocrats, daughters of billionaire businessmen, politicians, ambassadors, and some U.S. presidents' daughters, like Trixie, or Trixon. Is her name Trixie Nixon or Trixie Nixon? Nixon's daughter. Julie Nixon, Jenny Eisenhower, Ashley Walker Bush, Charlotte and Catherine Forbes, Christina Huffington. Apparently Ivanka Trump was invited, but she didn't show up. Many of the rituals remain today the same as they have always been. You must be recommended or sponsored by somebody that has already been presented, typically like a mother or a relative. You have to wear white gloves and they have to go above the elbow, 3 inches, like exactly 3 inches above the elbow. They're called satin or kid gloves. You have to wear white gowns. You stand in a receiving line. So you stand in this receiving line for hours while everybody enters the party. And then once everybody enters the party, well, they look at you and they say hello to you. And they're like, oh my God, it's been so long since I've seen you. And you're like, I don't know who you are. Everyone goes in, sits down, and then you are presented on stage. They call your name. You come up on stage. And then after you're announced, you are walked around the stage on the arm of your father, which I hate.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you must perform a curtsy that is called the St. James bow, or a full court bow, which you bend and hold for 4 seconds. And all of these girls that are being presented have taken some sort of like etiquette class to like perfect walking in heels, bowing, all that kind of stuff.
That's what I've seen in movies and stuff. That's like the most I know about it. The bow with the big dress.
Right. And if you're from Texas, it's actually called the Texas dip. So you don't have to perform the St. James whatever. You perform the Texas dip because everything from Texas is bigger. Yeah. And God, I could talk about debutantes forever. You can go to other famous debutante balls if your parents are like part of the society. There's the Dallas Symphony Orchestra Presentation Ball. There's the National Coalition and Thanksgiving Ball of Washington, D.C., the St. Cecilia Society Ball, which was actually founded in 1766. These things have been around forever. And most of these like clubs are centuries old, and families have often like several generations of women who debut under the same club name. These events are not publicized because everybody inside the club knows each other, and it's for them only. And it's like very elite and very like private. But if you don't get invited to any of these clubs to be presented, you can always have your own coming out party thrown by your family. And a lot of people do this, especially in the South. And you take classes, and if you're inviting women to your coming out party, they have to be women that have already came out. So you can't like just invite Jenny, your friend from school. They have to have already been presented. Well, exactly.
God, that's like my worst nightmare. I would hate that. If I was going to do one, I'd want to be like one of 1,000, you know? Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And they likened it to the quinceañera, which you kind of talked about, but I think it's very different. I don't know if the quinceañera is to be presented.
Originally it was, but it's not like that anymore. So yeah, actually it is pretty similar.
Right. And yeah, as long as you're like mature and like ready to get married, a lot of girls and deb balls these days they say not about getting married and not about finding like, you know, a suitor or whatever. They do a lot. It's like for charity. So
yeah. Or it's like a coming of age thing. Because I had a couple of friends who grew up in New Orleans. They all had it. They all did like debutante balls, but it wasn't like, I don't know.
Right. And debutante balls in New Orleans kind of are coinciding with Mardi Gras, so like Easter.
Yeah.
To kick off the season, you know? So sometimes you do it when you graduate high school, when you turn 16, when you graduate college. Summer application only, so you can apply to be a deb if you want. If this is your thing, Cool.
I thought you were going to tell people like where they can look up.
I couldn't find
Google
anywhere because
debutante
they're so private. They're truly so private. They don't
So I guess
publicize it at
if
all.
you wanted to do one, like if you're in the know, then you're in the know. We obviously are not in the know.
No. I mean, we could have our own coming out party, but it wouldn't be a debutante ball.
No one would come to it.
I would go and I'd bring like a 30 rack of PBR and some Doritos.
They need to do them now for like people dating now in their 20s, like eligible bachelors and bachelorettes.
Maybe it'll come back.
That is what a dating app is, but it'd be nice to have an event, you know?
Right.
You could do like a trick, like a cartwheel or something.
Exactly. You don't have to do the St. James bow. You have to it's like a talent show.
Yes. Actually, I would like that.
Yes. That's
Maybe I'll
amazing.
start it. That could be a company. All right, anyways, now we're getting off topic, but
That's
look
all I
out
got
for a
for
new
Debs.
company. Adult dating debutante style with a twist.
With a twist.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Sorry, Chelsea's a robot. If you want to talk to us, you can follow us on Twitter at the Good Eve Girls
Or Instagram at the Good Evening Girls.
or TikTok at the Good Eve Girls.
Come say hey.
You can also hit up our other podcast, Meet Me in Forks. You can even just go over there and leave us a review, a fake review. I don't know. Don't tell
Fake
iTunes
review?
that we want you to
Real
do
review?
that, but
Whatever
we will
you
take
want
it.
to do.
Yeah.
And
I
you'll
guess-
catch us next week, I guess.
I suppose if we're still around.
We'll see how the world goes. Anyway, bye.